Hello and welcome to Mr.EvilWakes. If you love scary stories to sleep to, you're in the right place. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching from in the world. Now, relax, close your eyes, and let the rain carry you into the darkness.
Story 1. My uncle left me a tropical paradise with some important rules to follow. Alright, anyone have something like this happen to them? So the other night, I get back to my apartment after another lousy shift, and there's a freaking letter addressed to me on my bed. Not in the stack of bills piled up under the mail slot, on my mattress. Looked like it came out of a fantasy story, fancy wax seal on the envelope and everything. I asked the landlady if the security cameras covering my hallway recorded anyone breaking in, but it just caught that punk from 4F making out with his latest girlfriend. All my windows were still locked from the inside when I checked. Creeped me the hell out. I didn't open the letter for a few days. Figured if someone was playing a prank on me, they'd out themselves if I didn't bring it up for a while. But I got curious, and a few hours ago, I popped the seal and read it. Here's what it said. Underscore 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 underscore. Dearest nephew, if you are reading this, it means my long life has finally drawn to a close and I must pass along the family estate to my most eligible next of kin, which is you. Being a single man in his youth with few social obligations, you are the prime candidate to undergo this venture. Just imagine it, your own private island with a lavish mansion, breathtaking scenery, full amenities, even Wi-Fi. And never having to work another day in your life. And all you have to do to leave the dreary world of the 9-to-5 wage slave is pack your bags. But I think I'm getting ahead of things. Allow me to introduce myself. You have never met me, but I am your father's great-great Uncle Stanley, your grandmother Constance's cousin. Given my less than respectable lifestyle in my youth, and my disappearance 60 years ago, it would be no surprise if the memory of me had been conveniently swept under the rug. I gather my life before undertaking this lifelong vacation bears similarity to yours. I kept to myself with little social interaction, had disinterest in work and studies, and had nothing to occupy my time but my vices. And much like yourself and those before me, I was in my early 20s when I got a letter from a forgotten relative with the deal of a lifetime. Since then, my entire life has been spent in luxury and peaceful isolation. I kept up to date with the outside world through newspapers, television, and the internet. Supplies arrive regularly at the dock, and I have never found myself wanting. I enjoyed many hobbies such as fishing, swimming, gardening, island chores, and even did a spot of writing. Now, as I feel my age catching up to me, I must pass along this paradise and prepare its new tenant, or should I say caretaker, for what awaits you should you choose to take up this offer. For while your life here will be luxurious, nothing is free, and there are a few simple responsibilities you must keep tabs on. That, and living in isolation means you must be aware of any and all hazards so as not to find yourself caught with the proverbial thumb up your keister. Don't worry, our family has been enjoying this island for generations, and through over 3 centuries of trial and error, we have this place figured out to a T. The mansion's library will have all you could want to know about this place's history and rules of upkeep, and I will write several more cheat sheets to help you with the more nuanced tasks. But for the sake of brevity, this letter'll just get you up to speed on the process of getting you settled on your arrival. Should you accept the responsibility, a car will pick you up at first light the day after you open and read this letter. You'll know it when you see it. Don't ask how it knows to come, just be ready at the curb with your belongings. Don't leave anything behind you want to lose as you won't be coming back. From there, you will be driven to port, where your driver will point out the ship waiting to take you to your new home. The crew will load your belongings. Under no circumstances are you to offer to help them but to be sure to thank them for their services. They're persnickety about these things, and besides you're about to begin a new life of leisure, no point in throwing all that away by becoming the newest member of the crew. Once on board, the trip will take 4 days. Do not worry if you have a tendency towards seasickness, the helmsman is sure, and the ride is smooth no matter the weather. However, while you are allowed full access to the ship during the day, it is imperative that at night you stay on the top deck. Under no circumstances should you venture below deck at night regardless of threats of impending storms, as the crew is restless and the moonlight's protection won't reach below. Instead, spend your nights at the forward top deck near the ship's figurehead, and sleep during the day in the shade. Also, while the cook is a surly individual, he has a jovial nature at heart and his cooking is immaculate. But whatever you do, don't ask for seconds, and politely decline the gumbo. Longpig may sound delicious, but believe me when I say it is one culinary venture you don't want to take. When you arrive at the island, the crew will unload your belongings into a golf cart with a storage trunk parked near the dock for your convenience. It is now safe to assist them if you so desire. Be sure to thank them again for their services and wish them well. Shake the captain's hand, but do not do so with the helmsman. Stay at the dock and watch until they sail out of sight. If you happen to see the ship capsize, check the mooring post on your right. If the time matches what was carved into the wood, then there is nothing to worry about. If it doesn't, note the time for later, then begin making your way along the path to the mansion up the hill. You should reach the house well before sundown. Try not to get distracted with the scenery, there'll be time enough for that later. The front door should be unlocked, but when you first arrive, pass it up and instead park the cart to the right of the mansion by the greenhouse. You can leave your belongings there, they will be moved to your quarters that night after you familiarize yourself with the house a bit. The door closest to the greenhouse opens into the kitchen. If the ship that brought you here went under at a time other than what was carved on the mooring post, write it down on the clipboard hanging next to the sink. Feel free to grab a light snack from the fridge if you're feeling peckish, but be sure to save room for dinner. Then walk through the green door which opens into the dining hall. The tables will be set and all but one of the chairs will be pushed in. Leave this chair out and the half-eaten food in front of it untouched. It is the custodian's seat, and he will return to his meal after he brings in your belongings later in the night. From the dining hall, you will walk into the main foyer. Take your time to appreciate the marble staircase, and see if you can make out the faint impressions left by feet from 3 centuries of our family treading up and down them. Make your way up to the 3rd floor landing and take a right. The opulent door at the end of the hall is the master bedroom, but do not enter, as the custodian sleeps there between tenants and values his privacy. Instead, politely knock 3 times, and announce that you are the new occupant and will be requiring him to return to his assigned quarters by the morning. Then, return downstairs to the dining hall, where your own dinner will be waiting for you at the main table. After dinner, be sure to stack your plates and utensils neatly. You want to make a good impression with the custodian. Then, return to the foyer and go through the large green double doors on the other side of the mansion. This is the library, where you will spend the night while the custodian readies your room and gets you settled in. The armchair by the fireplace is quite comfortable, and in my recent years, I find myself comfortably sleeping here more than the master bedroom. While there is an extensive collection of books, I guess that you'll be more interested in the small paper taped to the underside of the coffee table with the Wi-Fi password. However, I would advise you read the letter I will leave in the large green book on the writing desk. It will entail how to proceed with your first day as the island's caretaker, as getting a feel for these things ahead of time helps. By 9:45 p.m., close and lock all locks on the double doors, and check to ensure the window locks are in place and not loose. A small screwdriver is in the left drawer of the writing desk if they need to be tightened. Then, get comfortable and spend the rest of the night here. Ignore any noises coming from the hallway. The custodian will be using the front door throughout the night, so expect to hear it opening several times. If you need to use the bathroom, there is one on the other side of the blue door to the right of the fireplace. There is a small case with reusable earplugs on the mantelpiece. I would advise you use them this first night, as the local wildlife tends to get vocal after 10 p.m., and while most are harmless, their calls can be unsettling for those unaccustomed to them. On that same note, if you hear your name in the night, do not respond or react in any way. Just don't. Trust me, it's not worth it. And that should cover your first night on the island. You will be awoken in the morning with 3 knocks on the double doors. This is the custodian letting you know he has finished transferring your belongings to the master bedroom. He will not enter the mansion again except for the scheduled cleaning days. From there, refer to my aforementioned letter in the Green Book for everything you'll need to know about officially becoming caretaker of the island and all it entails. I do hope you'll take this chance of a lifetime, but the choice is of course yours. Regardless of your decision, I hope this letter found you well, and that you will continue to have a pleasant life. Sincerely, great Uncle Stanley. Underscore 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 underscore. I still had the login for the family tree service my grandmother got for us before her passing, and sure enough, I did have a great Uncle Stanley, although there was next to noting about him other than his name. While it could be, and probably is, a scam, I gotta admit, it's not like I've got a lot to lose. My job sucks ass, and I've had to sell most of my belongings just to cover the rent in this glorified storage unit of an apartment. I haven't been close with most of my family in years, not since I was falsely accused of SAW in high school because the popular girl was bored. Same incident lost me the few friends I had, so my social circle is non-existent too. I only have a small backpack, but it can fit what few clothes and possessions I have easily enough. Honestly, I'm at the point where I'll try anything over this dead-end life I'm living now. I've got my stuff out on my mattress ready to be packed, and let my boss know I won't be in for a few days. I'm going to wait outside tomorrow for the car to pick me up. If you don't hear from me in a week, they probably took my kidneys or something. I'll post again when and if I can. Wish me luck. Story 2. What really happened in the Raleigh case? I don't usually write, and I'm definitely not the kind of person who signs up for forums out there, but over the past few months, ever since the files leaked, some people have started reaching out to me. Some say I'm one of the only ones left from the Raleigh case. Others want interviews. There was even a true crime channel trying to dramatize everything with terrible actors and suspense music on loop, a web series or something like that. I'll say it up front. If you're wondering which series or where to find the info, well, the first video is already off YouTube. They deleted everything 2 days ago. They say it was due to pressure from the family. Others feed conspiracies about what the government might be hiding. The series is still in production, but the original writer vanished. Literally. Just disappeared, didn't show up for a team meeting and never replied again. The pilot episode ended up leaking on a private server, but someone made sure to take it down quickly. There's not much left, and what's left is being told by people who shouldn't be telling it. That's why I'm here, to tell what really happened to us. And what happened to Ben Raleigh. I thought I'd ignore it, like I did with everything else these past few months. I thought time would be enough to bury that story. But now that they're telling it the wrong way, I need to record how it actually happened. And before anyone who saw any of the content asks, yes. The train is real, but it doesn't start with it. My whole role in this delicate plot began when I moved back to my hometown. It was kind of a cowardly decision, I admit. I hid behind an acceptable reason. I was hired to restore the murals at St. Luke's Chapel, down in the Rail District. Sacred painting, something I've done for years and that many people assume requires some kind of faith. I don't know if I have faith. But I like the silence that hangs between the stone walls, the old paint creaking on the brush, the smell of incense that never seems to leave the floor. I like the illusion of eternity. And maybe it was because of that, or maybe because, deep down, I knew I'd end up passing close to the tracks, that I accepted. The neighborhood I grew up in isn't far from the freight station. In fact, everything in that town revolves around the tracks, even after the railway died. They cut through streets, divide neighborhoods, sink beneath cracked concrete walkways. They're everywhere, like old scars no one dares to remove. The station where everything happened, where Ben disappeared, is still there, though they say it's deactivated. No one goes there. There haven't been any trains registered on that line for years. But what everyone knows is that, from time to time, a whistle can still be heard. I heard it too, on my second night in town. I was painting alone, like I always do, when something echoed low, metallic, like a wagon being dragged by a heavy chain miles beneath the ground. You know that kind of low rumble that makes your chest tremble. Yeah, the sound was brief, but it left an echo. My hand shook. The paint fell. And in that moment, for the first time in years, something inside me resonated. Something deep, buried since childhood, a reverse nostalgia, an aversion to the past, as if something in the past wanted to come back, even though it should have stayed there. I couldn't fall asleep for a long time that night, and when I finally did, it was a restless, unsettled kind of sleep. The next day, coming back from downtown with some cans of varnish and an energy drink and a new fine-tipped brush, I saw the poster on the pole near the hardware store. Regional tournament. Connor's team. Connors, I muttered to myself. No, it can't be. My small childhood group had 5 kids. We all lived in the same neighborhood, no more than 2 streets apart. One of those friends was Jake Connor. A chubby little redhead with freckles and messy hair, always wearing a shirt that showed the bottom of his belly, which earned him the nickname, Jake Piggy. Of course he was still around. But as a coach, well, he didn't have siblings or any relatives to share that last name with, so it was either that or a new resident totally unrelated to my past, and honestly, no one moves to this godforsaken place. I don't know what came over me. Maybe just curiosity. Maybe some instinctive need to see something that was still familiar. I went to the game that night. I stayed in the back of the bleachers, near the metal fence, holding a warm Coke and trying to look casual. Jake saw me in the second half. I don't know what he did, but his muscles were seriously built, an enviable physique that betrayed years of training and probably a domestication of his once wild appetite. Still, I recognized him, the same friendly eyes of the kid who held out his hand to me when I showed up crying on the first day of school. Even from afar, I noticed he still had that slightly mocking way about him, like the whole world was a soccer practice and he was the only one with a whistle. After the game, he came right up. "Caleb Morgan, that you?" He pulled me into a hug, lifting me off the ground. "Look who decided to rise from the dead." Asterisk. I nodded, a bit embarrassed. Then we went to the tech school parking lot to have a beer on the hood of his stylish EcoSport. "So you're painting saints now, is that it?" he asked. "Something like that," I said. "And why here?" Asterisk. "They paid well." Asterisk. "And it's got nothing to do with Ben, huh?" Asterisk. Silence. Ben was also one of our group, along with his now fiancée, Amy. I kind of liked her back then, and when she and Ben started dating, that was the final straw for me leaving town. I told Jake about it at the time and he was the only one who knew how I felt. He looked off into the distance, like he didn't want to pressure me. "Come on, Jake, you know I don't hold grudges. That was young stuff. It's all good now." Asterisk. He gave me a puzzled look. "So you don't know?" Asterisk. "Don't know what?" Asterisk. "Caleb, Ben's missing. It's been months since anyone's seen him." Asterisk. I stood frozen, trying to process it. We hadn't spoken in a long time, but still, it was Ben. Jake saw my reaction, but went on anyway. "Wes says the train started running again. Not officially, of course. His usual crazy stuff, you know. He believes Ben mapped everything before he vanished, that he knew where to catch it. And that he left clues." Asterisk. I took a while to answer. My heart already knew what I was going to say before my mouth even decided. "Is he still living around here?" Asterisk. "Same place as always. Wanna see him?" Asterisk. I nodded, and Jake smiled with that look of someone who thinks they're about to show you something amazing. We drove there, he let me pick the music, like the old days, and somehow that gave me a kind of comfort even if uncomfortable. Tears for Fears asterisk, a classic I loved. A kind of nostalgia with rust along the edges. The neighborhood where Wes lived looked the same, only more hollow, I'd say. Not physically, the houses were still there, most with curtains in the windows, peeling fences, crooked antennas. But there was something in the air, as if the neighborhood was trying to hide. We stopped at a low house with a wide roof, its facade painted a beige that had once been white but had since lost its name. In the front yard, a pile of junk, bikes without wheels, torn cardboard boxes, a restricted area sign. Stuck in the weeds. It was the kind of place that makes you think twice before knocking. But Jake walked right up and knocked 3 times. Once, twice, and on the third, the handle turned. Wes showed up with the face of someone who hasn't slept in days. Army t-shirt, sunken eyes, messy hair. When he saw me, he paused for a second. Then smiled a smile that almost hurt his cheeks. "I knew it, asterisk," he said. "I knew you'd come back." Asterisk. "That's becoming a catchphrase," asterisk, I muttered, and he laughed. He led us straight to the garage, which had clearly been converted into a conspiracy HQ. Maps, wires, papers scattered around, red markings, post-its with dates, handwritten notes, one of the walls covered in a plastic sheet with fluorescent marker trails connecting names, times, and tracks. He opened a craft paper folder and pulled out a stack of pages. This is what's left of Ben's stuff. He gave it to Amy, and she gave it to me when she didn't know what else to do with it. She figured I was the only crazy one who might understand. And she was right. Asterisk. You really believe in all this? I asked, but it didn't come out ironic. It was more like trying to gauge how deep he'd gone. Wes looked at me, that gleam in his eyes wasn't just excitement. It was faith. The kind of faith that doesn't need to convince anyone. He was trying to track the train. Map the times, the sounds. The sequence. Like a stop pattern. He was piecing things together, Caleb. And I think he found the boarding point. Asterisk. I stayed quiet. Something about the way he said, boarding point, gave me a strange chill. Boarding what? I remembered that last night I'd heard the mechanical whistles of invisible gears. Jake stood leaning against the door, watching without saying much. From what I knew of him, he thought it was all nonsense, but deep down, he was waiting for something to happen. Tomorrow, Wes said, I want to take you there. It's not far, but you need to see it with your own eyes. And, he paused, almost embarrassed, maybe hear it too. Hear what? He just smiled. The kind of smile that bothered me more than any direct answer would've. Was I stupid to say yes? For sure. But the next morning, I woke before sunrise. My head was heavy, the kind of heaviness that comes from a night without real sleep, like Wes's insomnia had rubbed off on me. The sound, it was there again. That deep, buried vibration, like something ancient trying to wake beneath the city. Work passed without anything unusual, and my attempts to talk to the priest about these strange events led nowhere. By late afternoon, we met at the old station. A rusted structure, partially swallowed by vegetation. Part of the platform had collapsed years ago, and the upper sign no longer had letters, just holes where something like, District a Station, used to be. No one remembered anymore. Wes was already there, with his backpack, the same one as always, which made me wonder how it was still standing after over a decade, and a folder stuffed with crumpled papers. He was crouched near the tracks, recorder running. When he saw us, he stood. He came here. I'm sure of it. There are footprints. Sometimes fresh. Sometimes just a mark in the dust. And Amy. I asked. Does she know you're doing this? Wes hesitated. She follows me sometimes. But she doesn't say anything. Since Ben disappeared, she's changed. She thinks he might still come back. And you? He just looked at me. Wes was about to answer when we heard footsteps coming from the blind side of the station. The vegetation rustled slightly, and Amy appeared, slowly. For a moment, no one said anything. And even though we were outdoors, surrounded by grass and metal, her presence brought a deathly, sterile silence. She wore a thin coat, far too big for her, like time had shrunk someone who once took up more space in the world. Even so, she was as beautiful as I remembered, if not more. Her reddish-brown hair down to her shoulders, dark, piercing eyes staring at us, heavy with dark circles against her pale skin. She was holding a brown envelope to her chest. With both hands. I didn't ask how she knew we were there. Maybe she just knew. She walked up to us and stopped 2 steps away. Looked at me, then Jake, then Wes. Her gaze lingered longest on mine. This was his, she said, holding out the envelope. No one moved at first. Then Wes stepped forward and took it carefully. Did you open it? He asked. Amy shook her head. I tried. But, it always felt wrong. She looked around. He wanted us to come back here. That I know. I just don't understand why. The envelope was slightly creased, with a soft fold in the upper left corner. There was nothing written on the outside. Wes opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a pile of papers. Handwritten notes, small drawings, cut out newspaper clippings glued together like a puzzle only the person who made it could understand. I recognized Ben's handwriting instantly. That cramped script, with uneven spacing between the words. As a kid, he used to write like he was afraid of wasting paper. One page stood out to me. It had only a single word in the upper corner. Pairs. Next to it, a simple diagram. The inside of a train car, with seats drawn in rows and a red X over one of them. Jake scoffed, running his hand over his face. This looks like some ritual crap, man. Like, sick stuff. Asterisk. Wes stared at the pages like he was trying to remember something. Amy stepped back. I don't know if I want to keep going with this. I shouldn't have come. Asterisk. She turned to leave, but hesitated. Looked at me one last time, her eyes more alive than I remembered but also more distant. Like she was looking through me. Caleb, if he really is out there, for whatever reason, just bring him back. Please. Asterisk. And then she left. The sky was already starting to darken, and the golden light of late afternoon gave the station a stage-like look, like someone had built the whole place just for that moment. Jake crossed his arms. This is giving me a bad feeling, man. Asterisk. He turned to me. Are you seriously thinking about following through with this? Asterisk. I don't know, I replied, but I know that if I leave now, I won't sleep tonight. Maybe not the next either. Asterisk. Wes grinned, nudging Jake with his elbow. Told you he'd be in. Boarding point shows up at midnight, sir, and gave me an ironic bow. You've seen it? I asked. He hesitated. Looked away. I heard it. And I saw a light, once. Something, running along the tracks. But too fast to make out. Asterisk. A silence. And there was something else. Asterisk. What? Asterisk. He looked back up, staring into my eyes, more serious than ever. I think I saw someone inside one of the cars. Standing still. Staring at me. Asterisk. It was already night when I got back to the chapel. The air was dense, stifling, even a bit warm for that time of year. I locked the door, dropped my things on the floor, and sat for a few minutes on the dusty altar, trying to gather my thoughts. But they wouldn't gather. They just spun around a single point, the note on the paper. Pairs. Pairs of what? An instruction. A password. I turned off the light in the main hall and walked down the side corridor toward the small back room where I was sleeping during the project. The window looked out onto the side street, where the old stretch of track began, the one that ran through the town. I looked through the curtains. Not a soul in sight. But as I turned to close the door, I saw something reflected in the glass. Small, low, standing still in the middle of the street. I froze in fright, turned slowly, but there was no one there. Opened the door and stepped out. Took 2 steps. Nothing. Just the sound of wind passing through cracks in the concrete. But the smell, a strange smell. Bitter. Something between sulfur and wet iron. I went back inside. Locked up. Stood still for a few seconds, listening. Nothing. And when I turned again to go up the narrow staircase, I saw a handprint. On the inside of the glass door. Too low and small to be from an adult. Too warm to be old. I left just before midnight. Put on a light jacket, switched my phone to airplane mode, don't ask me why, I just did, and walked to the station. It was close, no more than 20 minutes on foot, and I needed to feel the city again, its sounds, its smells, its shadows. I couldn't face this thing from inside a car with the radio on. Ironically enough, the streets were empty. Unnaturally quiet. Even the backyard dogs seemed to know better than to bark that night. When I got there, Wes was already waiting. Sitting in the middle of the broken platform, staring at nothing like he was watching time go by. If I didn't know him, I'd say he was high. We just nodded at each other and stayed there in silence. Jake showed up a few minutes later, muttering that he'd lost sleep over some goddamn ghost train, but brought a Gatorade and tossed me half a bag of Doritos. All right, ghost hunting Sherlocks, he said, yawning. What time does the clown show start? Asterisk. Midnight, obviously, Wes replied. The whole city felt suspended. No wind, no insects, no sound coming from anywhere. Just the 3 of us, lit by a flashlight Wes had strapped to a makeshift tripod made out of broken chair legs. Midnight came. Nothing. Wes started pacing, back and forth, like something was off with the world's clock. Jake, naturally, started mocking. Even I began to doubt. For a moment, it was just this. 3 grown men in a forgotten place, haunted by ghosts of the past. And then, it happened. No warning, no rumble. The train just appeared. Not arriving from afar, not emerging from the horizon, it was simply there. A long, black train with darkened windows, metal stained by time, just existing less than 5 meters from us. I felt the gust of air hit me like a punch to the chest. The sound was deafening, like a living machine groaning, and the headlight, if it even was a light, looked more like a white hole, leaking pressure. I was so terrified I forgot one crucial thing: I was on the tracks. I had stepped down earlier to snap a few aesthetic shots for inspiration, figuring midnight had already passed and I didn't want the night to be a waste. Even if the train did show up, I thought I'd have enough time and space to run. But suddenly the train was barreling right at me. A steel monster, absurd, aimless, just raw magnitude, and a scream that seemed to come from inside my head. Jake saved me. He grabbed my collar and yanked me back onto the platform with a strength I'd never seen in him. I hit the ground, elbow throbbing and heart trying to leap from my throat. The train thundered past us, car after car, with no end in sight. It wasn't just dragging metal, it was warping time itself. The windows, my God. Some were fogged up. Others were covered in something dark. And one of them, just a few feet from me, revealed a figure. Still, seated, staring right at me. I couldn't make out many details of the face. Just the eyes. Big, black, like wet coal. And the mouth, slightly open, like it was about to speak. Wes was recording. I saw it. He was shaking, we all were, but he held the recorder steady, pointed at the tracks, like it was the only thing keeping it real. When the last car passed, there was no sound of brakes, no fading distance. The train was just gone. You saw that, right? Jake shouted, dripping sweat. You fucking saw that. Asterisk. Wes stared at the recorder. Hit stop. Took 2 steps back and sat down. I couldn't speak. The sound still echoed, not in my ears, but in my chest. Wes stood, pulled out one of the papers from the envelope. The map. The red mark pointed exactly to where the train had appeared. He found it, Wes murmured. Ben found the point. Asterisk. Jake threw his Gatorade at the metal wall. So what now? We get in. Take a one-way trip to hell. Asterisk. No one's getting in yet, I said. My voice came out hoarse. We need to think. Asterisk. Oh, so you're in charge of this field trip now. Asterisk. If that's how it is, let me just say I've been on this ride way longer, Wes added, raising a hand. No, I just don't think it's smart to jump on ghost trains, that's all. Think about Ben. The conversation faded eventually, even though all of us were buzzing from the experience. We said our goodbyes shortly before 1 a.m. and I headed home. I walked in a daze, distracted, for about 15 minutes. I was nearing the church when I felt it. Something behind me. I turned slowly, praying to see nothing. But I saw a child, standing in the street, again, wearing a train conductor's outfit, hat crooked. Closer this time, maybe 10 meters away. He took one step, then another. His face. Something was wrong, like it had been assembled. Drawn, cut from magazines, pasted together. Eyes too deep, mouth too wide, and the smell now unbearable, burnt sulfur and basement mold. I ran. Didn't even think. Just ran. The sound of his steps didn't come from the ground, they came from inside my head, like he was riding on my shoulders, whispering. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, all aboard. All aboard. I turned the corner, reached the church street, almost tripped on the curb, dropped my keys and nearly vomited from fear. I could feel the heat radiating from behind me. I snatched the keys off the ground, shaking, and by some miracle, or maybe just the monster's twisted sense of sport, I made it to safety. When I finally slammed the door shut, my eyes filled with tears. She was out there. And it wasn't a delusion. It wasn't urban legend. I approached the small glass window. The child stood in the street, staring. Not blinking, not moving. Its smile glowed with a fiery hue, and as if that wasn't enough to unhinge me, it spoke, in a deep, doubled voice. At the next station, Caleb. At the next station. It vanished with a pop of air and a stench of spoiled meat and hot iron. And I just stood there, back against the wall, trembling. My heart pounding in a steady rhythm, chuff chuff, like a train on the tracks. Story 3. Someone's paying me a lot to guard an empty field. Part 2. Part 1 https://www.reddit.com/r/nosleep/as/qcbfastening closing parenthesis. I was sitting there again. The dry grass of the empty field rustled softly in the late morning breeze. I had quit the convenience store job. I simply didn't show up one morning. As if the universe had been waiting for it, my phone chimed. It was the familiar question. Available shift tomorrow. Interested. At that moment, I felt like the place was calling me back. It had been waiting for me. So the next morning, I found myself once again in the train station parking lot. The fat man just laughed at my return, but since he was busy stuffing a cheeseburger into his mouth, he wasn't very talkative. I went through the usual motions and headed through the small town toward the field. It looked exactly the same. This place hadn't changed at all in a few months. My stomach twisted in both anxiety and comfort. I was glad to be back, but who knew what was waiting for me this time? With a bit of coffee from my thermos, half hanging out of the car door, I started reading through the day's instructions. This day looked like it would be just as strange. I didn't even bother reading the early morning time slots, they never concerned me. Those were the wrap-up tasks from the previous shift. My shift always starts around 12:42 to maintain a clean work environment. Please collect any trash from the field. Trash bags can be found on the back seat of the service vehicle. I glanced at my watch, 12:31. But the field was spotless, not a single piece of trash in sight, nothing that looked like it needed picking up. Oh well, I thought. Something always turns up, like it always does. 15:11 If the gardening lady is present, please ask for her name. If it's not Amanda, politely ask her to leave. If it is Amanda, greet her and let her go about her business. I sighed deeply. Here comes the hard part of the shift again. 10 minutes passed while I finished my coffee and leaned against the car, enjoying a little siesta. I watched the clouds drift lazily across the sky and listened to the birdsong. But without realizing it, my watch ticked over to 12:42. And in the blink of an eye, trash started pouring from the sky. I jumped back into the car in a panic as a rotten watermelon exploded on the ground right next to me. Most of it fell toward the middle of the field, but I heard the occasional thud of something hitting the roof of my car. One greasy, melted cheese wrapper even slapped onto my windshield. It lasted barely a minute, but a nice little landfill had formed out there. When I finally crawled out of the car, the stench hit me, absolutely revolting. But the thought that I was the one who had to clean all this up, that was somehow worse. It took me about an hour and a half to go over the entire field with a black trash bag, collecting every disgusting bit I could find. I won't go into details, it was just typical household waste, but I have no idea where it could have come from. After I was done, I rested in the car for a bit. I left the two big trash bags a little farther away so I wouldn't have to smell them right next to me. To wind down, I ate a sandwich and picked up the guide again to keep reading. 18:45 If Amanda is still present, please inform her that it's time to head home. If she's no longer there, you have no further duties, continue monitoring the area. 20:47 Please check the sunset. If it sets in the direction of the road, there's nothing to worry about, continue your duties. If it sets toward the forest, leave immediately. If it sets from any other direction, please notify the contact number. 23:09 If anyone is on the premises, please instruct them to leave. 1:37 Please climb the ladder and stay there for 1 hour. For your own safety, do not come down, no matter what. 7:44 Please count how many times the bird on the field chirps, and send the result to the contact number. It didn't seem like a difficult day, but I really hoped I wouldn't run into those rabbit-masked figures again tonight. I was resting in the car, feet dangling out the window, playing games on my phone. That's when I realized it was 15:14, I should have already taken care of the task. I jumped out of the car like a kid who just got caught doing something wrong. The field was still calm and oddly peaceful, as much as a place like this could ever be. But the moment I looked around, I felt my heart skip a beat. A young, attractive woman stood at the back of my car, staring at me with a teasing smile on her face. Once I snapped out of it, I gave her a little wave and spoke up. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said, adjusting the flashlight on my belt. "May I ask your name?" The woman casually leaned against the side of my car and looked me over from head to toe. "No," she said coldly, then suddenly burst into laughter. I eyed her warily. She was barefoot, wearing a light, summer dress with a floral print. Her wild, fiery red hair whipped in all directions in the wind. "I'm Amanda," she laughed again, and then, as if to toy with me, she turned and darted off toward the center of the field. I didn't know what to make of this. It didn't feel like one of those strange assignments, or like the nighttime visitors that gave me chills. Amanda seemed both completely human and something else. If I met a woman like her in a normal setting, I might ask her out on a date. But this wasn't a normal place. And nothing here was something I wanted to get involved with. Amanda ran to the center of the field. It was only then that I noticed a small flower garden there. I was certain it hadn't been there before, a neat flower bed full of colorful blossoms. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, Amanda was already planting flowers next to it. She had proper gardening tools too, which, again, made no sense to me. I just stood there, watching her work. There was something calming about the whole thing. "Why are you staring like that?" Amanda asked a few minutes later, glancing up at me. I'm not. I wasn't staring," I stammered awkwardly. She smiled sweetly. I pretended I hadn't been looking at her and focused instead on the peaceful field. The sun was warm, not a scorching summer heat, just pleasantly warm. "Amanda," I said suddenly, surprising even myself. "Where did you come from?" Amanda gave me an annoyed look. "From space," she replied, frowning and staring at me. I didn't know what to say. I just looked into her light blue eyes and delicate, narrow face. Then, suddenly, her scowl vanished and turned into a playful smile. No, more like a giggle. "You're weird, new guy," she laughed heartily. "Where else would I come from? Just like everyone else. I had a mom and a dad." She kept laughing. I stood there silently, deep in thought, watching her. I couldn't tell if Amanda didn't know where she really was, or if none of this seemed strange to her at all. "And what's your name, new guy?" Amanda asked after her laughter subsided. "Steve," I replied quickly. "Nice to meet you, Steve," Amanda said softly. "You seem like a good guy." Her words were genuinely comforting. Still, I felt it would be best to keep some distance from her. The poor girl might not even know what she's a part of, or where she really is. Time flew by. Amanda occasionally asked me things: who I was, where I grew up, what my childhood was like. I also learned a few things about her. She was born in England, her father worked on a ship, and her mother was a housewife. When she was 11, they moved to the States. They came to try their luck, but life hadn't been easy. After that, Amanda didn't want to talk anymore, and I didn't ask. It seemed better that way. I liked Amanda, and I could tell it was hard for her to talk about those things. Helping her with the gardening made time pass even faster. Before I knew it, it was already 6:39 p.m. Amanda had to leave by 45. I stood up from beside the little garden. The sun was already much lower than when we started. "Amanda," I said gently, "it's almost time for you to go." "Oh, right," Amanda said with a hint of surprise. She stood up from the flowers too, brushed off her dress in her dirty hands, then stepped over and gave me a hug. Her body was warm and soft. "Take care, Steve," she said kindly. Then she started walking toward the forest. "Amanda," I called after her. She turned and waited for what I had to say. "Amanda, do you know what this place is? Or what's going on here?" Amanda only smiled softly. "Yes," she said after a pause, "but I won't be the one to tell you those things. If you start seeing more than just the money in this place, you'll figure it out yourself." I didn't say anything. Amanda walked into the forest, but before disappearing, she turned back one last time and waved kindly. I waved back. It felt familiar, like someone had waved to me like that before. I stood outside my car, watching the sky. I was certain now that the sun was setting on the side of the road, so I could continue my shift. Still, it felt nice to just stand there in the warmth of the day's last rays. Amanda came to mind. The girl who didn't belong here, yet somehow did. What stuck with me most was her last sentence, that I'd figure out the secret of this place on my own. A part of me was afraid of that. Of what the company would do if I really found out what was happening here. But the money was really good. Then there were the people who appeared here. Some of them just vanished, like the old man or the woman in red. But Amanda and the rabbit-masked ones, they walked into the forest. Was there something in the forest? I stood there until it was completely dark around me. Panic started creeping in, so I figured it was best to get back in the car. There wasn't any task tonight involving the rabbit-masked people. But I swear, I was scared of them. I had dinner in the car and watched a show, trying to distract myself from this place. Time passed slowly in the car until it was 11:09 p.m. I had to return to my duties. I was nervous, deeply anxious. I hoped that no one would be out there, that I'd finally have a night without having to walk out to someone in the middle of the field and ask them to leave. But no, I wasn't that lucky. As soon as I stepped out of the car to take a look around, I saw that tonight wouldn't be easy either. Someone was sitting in a large armchair in the middle of the field, watching TV. I couldn't see clearly who it was, but the television was definitely on. Right there in the middle of nowhere, someone was watching a cooking show. Rubbing my tired eyes, I walked toward them. I thought I was prepared for anything, or so I believed. But as I got closer to the chair, an awful sense of déjà vu came over me. Like I had seen this before, lived it already. Even the back of the armchair looked horribly familiar. And when I finally saw who was sitting in it, I went pale. "Mom," I asked, my voice cracking. I remembered this place now. It was years ago. I was a senior in high school. One day I came home, and Mom was in a really bad mood. She sat in the armchair, smoking, watching a cooking show. I didn't bother her, I just sat on the floor beside her, and we watched TV together until evening. "Mom, what are you doing here?" My voice was still shaking. "What? Where? Steven, why are you looking at me like that?" she asked, startled, as if she had only just noticed I was standing there. My eyes welled up with tears. My mother had been dead for over 6 months. I dropped to my knees in front of the armchair and hugged her. We must have looked absurd, me hugging my mother who was watching TV in the middle of a field. "What's wrong, Steven?" she asked gently. "Why are you crying?" I didn't answer. The whole situation was impossible. Minutes passed, I think, there in the moonlight. But a notification on my phone pulled me back to reality. I stood up from beside my mother, who just smiled at me softly. I pulled out my phone. The message was from the usual number. "Steven, no one is allowed to remain on the field. Please instruct them to leave immediately." I rubbed my tired face. My dead mother was sitting in front of me, watching television in the middle of nowhere. The company I work for expected me to send away the woman who raised me. "Mom, how did you get here?" I asked again. She just shrugged vaguely, then started looking for the remote. She looked young. Younger than when I'd last seen her, before she died. Her behavior matched the other night visitors I'd seen here, confused, vacant-eyed. As if she'd just ended up here somehow. This wasn't my real mother. She's buried in the ground, far away from this place. I felt a spark of anger. This place was toying with me now. Like it wanted to break me. So I started in on the usual script. "Mom, or, ma'am, I have to ask you to leave. This is private property." My mother looked at me, wide-eyed. I tried to hold myself together. This isn't my mom. I had to stay strong. "Ma'am, please leave the area." "All right, Steven," she said quietly. "If that's what you want, I'll go." My lip trembled, my eyes welled again, but I couldn't let go. "Steven," she asked again, "could you help me up from the chair?" I took her hand to help her. She stood before me, looked me in the eyes, and the last thing she said was, "I love you, son." I closed my eyes. Her hand vanished from mine. A few moments later, I opened my eyes again. She was gone. The chair was gone. The TV too. Only the headlights of my car lit up the edge of the field. I walked back to my car. I got in and just stared blankly ahead. This wasn't like the other times. I wasn't scared, or nervous, or angry that I didn't understand what was happening. This time, it felt like something had broken inside me. Or maybe something had simply been lost. I don't know how long I sat there like that. My head felt completely empty, I couldn't think of anything. I just sat and stared. Everything that had happened today had shaken me. I felt like maybe I shouldn't have come back at all. Would I have been better off at that crappy store job? I looked toward the field again. In the center stood a simple plastic ladder. Is it that time already? I glanced at my watch. I quickly jumped out of the car and walked over to the ladder. It really was just a ladder. We had one just like it in the store's stockroom, and now here it was, standing in the middle of the field. Since the instructions had said to climb it, I did. I climbed all the way to the top. Once there, I set an alarm on my phone to make sure I waited the full hour. Time passed slowly. At first, I just stood on top of it. Then, Though it was uncomfortable, I sat down on the top step and waited. I sat there, in the dark field, at the top of a ladder. The car's headlights glowed in the distance behind me, and above, the stars. That's when I saw someone approaching. The figure was limping, struggling to move through the grassy field. I stood on the ladder and pointed my flashlight toward them, and immediately regretted it. A man was walking toward me. He was covered in blood, or at least I think it was blood. His intestines were hanging out, dragging on the ground behind him. Half his face was missing, and he was completely naked. I nearly lost it on top of that ladder. I wanted to run back to the car. But the instruction had been clear: do not leave the ladder, no matter what happens. So I stayed. I sat up there like a lunatic. The man walked right up to the base of the ladder. Then he stopped, as if someone had told him, "This is far enough." He just stood there, reeking. He stank of rot. My legs were shaking. Sweat poured off me. That thing just stood there, staring. Minutes passed. Eventually, I gave up being tense. I sat back down on the step, but I was very careful not to let my legs hang down. "You waiting for someone?" I asked, surprising even myself. He didn't reply. He just stood there. And then, just like that, he left. He gathered up his guts and started dragging himself back toward the woods. Once he was far enough away, my phone alarm went off. My hour was up. Not much longer now, and I'd finally be able to go home. The last hours are always the hardest. 7:44 had already passed. I stepped outside to count how many times the bird in the field chirped. I had to listen carefully. It was barely audible. If I counted right, it made one repeating chirp every minute. I sent the result to the designated number. The reply simply praised my work and told me to continue. After that, I got back in the car. I was already getting sleepy. I ate all the sandwiches I had, and only one energy drink remained. I was saving it for the drive home. I thought about the events of the night. What was my mom doing here? I had assumed that all the figures who appeared here were somehow tied to the company, or at least people I was meant to watch over, not just the field itself. But my mom was dead. Could it be that all the other figures who showed up were also dead? Amanda too. And then who, or what, are those rabbit-masked creatures? Eventually, 11 o'clock rolled around. I received the usual text. My shift was over. I could go home. The drive back was always exhausting, but this one was pure hell. I could barely keep my eyes open, and even the energy drink didn't help. But somehow, I made it back to the train station. The fat man was already waiting, looking sleepy. He mumbled something about partying with his friends because it was Friday. I didn't really listen. I was too tired, and this shift had left me completely drained. I somehow stumbled home in a daze. Once I got inside, I pulled out the envelope. I didn't want to count several $1,000s in the middle of the street. But what I found surprised me. There was only $2,000 inside, and a note. "Steve, you forgot this morning's package. This has been deducted from your pay. Please be more attentive to your duties next time. The company." "Fuck you," I muttered angrily. I rested over the next few days. Tried to recover from it all. Or at least, I tried. I searched the coordinates online, hoping to find something, but there was nothing. Nothing useful. Then I got another message. Again, from the company, but this one was different. It was new. "Steve, due to your reliable service, we are offering you a special high difficulty shift. Important. This shift requires heightened focus. Please only accept if you are confident you can handle it. Special pay rate applies." I hesitated for a moment. But this is why I left the store job, isn't it? Something was calling me back. Or someone. I accepted. 4 days later. Tuesday, September 4th. Story 4. I got addicted to venting to an internet stranger. He decided to come visit me. "No wonder you were upset, your dad has been treating you like shit." Came the text message after a few seconds of typing, bubble. I physically jumped a little from my chair. Yes. Finally. Finally someone who gets me. I felt heard when I was with Gorilla_123. Not only did he listen to my struggles, he made me feel okay about the hosh-posh of emotions inside me. He made me feel, not broken. "I am sorry. I am always venting to you." I say, not being completely sincere in my apology. "Don't you dare say sorry. What are friends for after all?" he replied. I sighed with relief. I could rely on gorilla_123. After all, he had been hearing me vent non-stop for 3 months now. You see, my life is somewhat of a mess. My single dad treats me like a burden, even though all he does is drink all the time using my money. My job is a waitress as well, soul crunching, however you make sense of that. I don't really have a social life and my only friend seems to be an internet Discord friend that goes by the name of gorilla_123. Gorilla_123 has always been nice to me. Which is why his next message made me freeze in my chair. You should die, came the message after the notification beep. What the fuck? Did he actually just say that? He can't, this has to be some sort of a misunderstanding. He knows that well, my emotional ass would cry at something like that. This has gots to be a mistake. WDYM. I ask. WDYM means, what do you mean? I mean, think about it. The world has been treating you like garbage. The world doesn't deserve you, he said. Ain't no way he actually meant it. Is he gone crazy out of nowhere? He had never said anything even remotely like that. Getting told I should die after being called a friend was not something I expected today, despite how usually shitty my days go. No. WTF. I replied. I can't see you upset like this. I can't see you being tortured every single day. It hurts me, he replied. And then he said something that made this whole situation more real than I ever realized. Look outside. I stared at the reply for a few moments, trying to understand what it means. He couldn't be asking me to actually look out of my window or something, could he? Well, I got up and glanced out the window into the dimly lit street. Nothing. I sighed with relief. I was half expecting him to be standing there. Thank God he isn't. And then I noticed someone barely peeking from behind our car. A gorilla mask. Everything stopped for a moment, as my heart struggled to continue working. The gorilla mask was pitch black with faintly glowing red eyes. I stood there, unable to move or speak, looking at the masked man as he slowly revealed himself in full by coming out. I don't have any words to describe his build except, he was a giant. And he held a knife that shined against the full moon. My throat felt dry as I stared at the man, gorilla_123. How the hell does he know where I live? Did I say it by mistake? My dumbass would probably do shit like that. It took all the energy in my body to finally break out of the trance. I closed the curtain quickly, turned off the lights and slid below my bed. If you feel like mocking the sheer stupidity of hiding under the bed, then I would just say you clearly haven't been in a situation like this. My brain was paralyzed and this was the best I could do. My last hope, it seemed. The door was kicked open with such a loud thud it made my heart jump. I struggled to keep my cries as quiet as possible. The man started humming as his footsteps echoed like thunder through the house. Where are you? He sung in a peaceful and sweet way. It made my stomach churn. I was going to die. Why did I even start venting to him? What the fuck was I thinking? I should have started repenting, I guess, but all I could think of was how dumb I am. The footsteps ran through the whole house. I hope my dad doesn't wake up. I hope he stays hidden, fallen on the floor behind the sofa after drinking more than he could handle. I know he sucks, but he has his own problems. He wasn't always like that. He was the most caring dad, always cheerful. And then mom died, and who he was died with her, being replaced by an empty shell that just drinks and shouts. He is just grieving though, isn't he? I hope he stays safe. Knock knock knock. The knocks on my door were so sudden and loud that I couldn't stop myself from bursting into tears. I shouted and cried, begging the man to leave me alone. Begging him to let me live. Shouting that I still had much to live for. Please go away. I screamed, my body slowly accepting the fact that I will die in a few minutes. And then, ding ding, a notification. The knocking stopped. I slowly slid out the bed, still whimpering, and walked to the screen. I was just messing with you. Get pranked. Anyways, I got you friendo. Killed your dad for you. Now, no need to thank me. I will go now, got to sleep. Story 5. I used to be a birthday party clown. Part 1. Look, I get it. Clowns are creepy. I've heard it all. Clowns are childhood trauma in face paint. Clowns are demons with balloon animals. Blah blah blah, but for me, being a clown was red money. I didn't choose the clown life chose me, well after I got fired from my last job. So yeah, I was Chuckles. Full-time party clown, part-time existential crisis in oversized shoes. And this is the story that made me hang up the rainbow wig forever. It was a Saturday afternoon in July. Hot as Satan's jockstrap. I was already sweating before I got the costume on. Client name, Meredith something or other. Location, suburbs. Big ass house. Think, we own a Peloton in every room. Rich. Gig, just entertain the kids for an hour or two. Make 'em laugh. Do your little jokes. Meredith said on the phone, like she was talking to a Roomba, not a human being with feelings and clown shoes. I show up in full Chuckles gear, red nose, flower that squirts water and pants that are part tripping hazard, part fire hazard. Meredith greets me at the door like she's smelling spoiled milk. You're the clown. Me, I sure hope so, otherwise I just made a huge mistake in the Walgreens parking lot. No laugh. Just a sigh. Rich people don't laugh, probably due to the fact they have a stick lodged up their ass like some ventriloquist's jalapeno. I shuffle into the backyard, expecting to see 30 screaming kids high on sugar. Instead, I see 6 kids. All sitting completely still, staring at me, unblinking, like children of the corn but in Baby Shark t-shirts. Me trying to salvage the vibe, hey kiddos. Who's ready for some Chuckles with Chuckles? Nothing. One kid blinked. That's it. They just stared. I tried to just ignore the creepy kid vibes and get the show rolling. Started with balloon animals. Usually a hit. Me, alright, who wants a doggy? Or a sword? Or, whatever this lumpy thing is, I think it's a giraffe with anxiety. Still nothing. Not even a giggle. Then the littlest girl with pigtails, big eyes, sippy cup of what I assumed was juice just walks up to me and tugs on my pant leg. Her, whispering, do the scream. Me. Her, the scream. The one the other clown did. Me, other clown. There wasn't supposed to be another clown. She nods. The others are still staring. Her, he screamed and screamed and screamed. Then he went in the shed and he didn't come out. I laughed, awkwardly. Me, well that's one way to exit the industry, huh? She didn't laugh. She just sucked juice from her cup with the loudest slurp I've ever heard. So naturally, I go ask Meredith. Me, hey, weird question. Did you guys, hire another clown recently? One that maybe screamed a lot and, went into a shed. She sips rosé and barely looks up. Her, oh, right. Trevor, or Travis, whatever. He left. The kids didn't like him. Me, did he ever come back out of the shed? Her, what? I don't know. I'm not a clown tracker. Are you going to juggle or not? Me, ma'am, I juggle with dignity. Which I have, just barely. I go back. The kids are now drawing in the grass with sticks. Not normal things like smiley faces or flowers. No, these are sigils, circles, symbols that looked like IKEA instructions for summoning a demon. The little girl, let's call her Lilith, for reasons that will soon be apparent, hands me a drawing. It's me. Not normal me. It's clown me, on fire, bleeding black goo out of my eyes and screaming. Me, okay. That's not going on the fridge. I try to distract them with my signature move, the giggle cannon. Basically, a confetti popper I modified to shoot mini marshmallows. It usually gets at least one kid to lose their mind with joy. I aim. Fire. Boom. Too loud. Too smoky. The confetti spirals down in the smoke, and when it clears, there's someone else standing in the yard. Another clown. Taller than me. Silent. Grease paint running like it's melting. Eyes too wide. Smile way too big. Like, split to the ears big. He just stands behind the kids. No one reacts. Not even Meredith. Just me. Sweating and questioning my clown-based life choices. Me. Okay, who's your friend? Lilith. That's the scream clown. The scream clown raises one gloved hand and slowly points at me. I swear I felt every hair on my body do the wave. Me trying not to shit my oversized pants, nice makeup. Real spooky. I love the whole, murderous mime from hell, thing you got going on. Then he opens his mouth. He screams. Not like a person scream. It was static. It was old-ass TV static mixed with nails on a chalkboard and the sound of a train wreck wrapped in crying. I passed out. Hard. Just full-on cartoon fainted, complete with the goofy-ass shoe squeak and everything. I woke up in the shed. It was dark, cold, smelled like sadness and dry erase markers. There were scratch marks on the walls. A rainbow wig on the floor. A torn red nose in the corner and painted on the inside of the shed door, in big smudged letters. No one leaves laughing. I screamed. Real human scream. Not as cool as the Scream Clown, but it got the job done. I kicked the shed door open and stumbled into the backyard. Everyone was fucking gone. No kids. No Meredith. No tall Scream Clown. Just a deflated bounce house and a lone sippy cup still dripping red juice on the grass. I quit that day. Haven't worn the costume since. Sometimes, when I'm driving and the radio fuzzes out, I think I hear that static scream in the distance. Sometimes I see drawings taped to poles in town. Crayon drawings of clowns on fire. I tell myself it's just PTSD. I tell myself Trevor probably got a new gig. Sometimes, when I sleep, I dream I'm back in that shed and the door doesn't open.
Thank you for spending your night with me. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and comment where you're listening from. And if you want more rain-soaked nightmares, check out the next video. Sleep tight, if you can.